reading from novels is not my favorite thing to do for an excerpt. It's, like, so hard to pick out, like, what part to read. You don't wanna give away too much, but if you give away too little, then it's boring and, all this stuff. So let me see here. I have a little section. There is some dialogue. There's 2 characters. Uh, hopefully I can get back to the Belmorn voice. It's been a couple of years. All right, here we go. So this is from chapter 1-4. It's pretty close to the beginning. He's just arriving at the city of Rune that he has been. You said it earlier. He's basically knows this one colonel, and he's trying to get to the city to find this guy, so he can hopefully find some medicine for his very very sick son. But the important thing you got to know is that he's really far from home. Like he's been on the road. We said this is the episode 4. This is the New Hope. There's a whole bunch of stuff that happened before this, but you don't need to know it. Who cares? This is the good stuff, right? That I wrote. But he's what is it, like 5 months into his journey at this point? He's been on the road, so he's road weary and finally at this place. Okay, I'll shut up now. Here we go. Belmorn's heart tripped. There was a light ahead. Finally, an end to the forest road he had been following for so long. Whether the stallion had entered a canter of his own volition or by some cue from its rider, Belmorn could not say, but with a boisterous shout he did intend. He urged Magnus into a full gallop. A sudden widening of the road ended at something Belmorn had not expected. Halfway between defensive wall and sculpture, Rune's outer wall was a sight to behold. Squinting at the white stone as if it were giving off light, Belmorn tilted his head. His gaze moved up and up, trying to locate where it all ended. But the top of the wall was lost amidst the overgrown branches of trees. The horse whinnied with an excited headshake. Yeah, was all Belmorn could muster. His eyes devoured the series of oversized figures, which stood shoulder to shoulder in a rigid line that wrapped around the wall in both directions. As he approached, Belmorn could see that every stone man held an enormous shield and was probably over 20 feet tall. The runic guard, he spoke with reverence, having heard the term many times in the preceding weeks. The road led to the only break in the stone figures that he could see. In a place of a door, there was a single portcullis, a sliding gate made of crisscrossing metal bars. Belmorn had seen the like before, usually at the far end of a castle's drawbridge, but such things were antiquated, from another older age, just like Rune itself. Belmorn had heard it called the last of the great shield cities. Now he had an idea of what that meant. Unlike his ultimate destination, Rune had been depicted prominently on every map. The place served as a gateway to the vast northern expanse which men called the Veld. Raised in the waning years of the last millennium, before the green-haired raiders crossed an ocean of ice in their dog-faced ships, in a time when the legendary venomancers of Zanhazib yet held sway over their now-lost domain, if one believed such things. Belmorn pulled Magnus to a halt, dismounted, and walked closer to the gate. The pattern of the bars was unique. Not vertical and horizontal, but crossed in stark angles like an iron latticework. He placed a gloved hand upon the surface, then pulled it away to inspect the red flakes. Definitely iron. He hadn't meant to say the words aloud. His speech elicited an unexpected snort. A man stood just inside the gate, a guard who was trying his best to look as if he had not been caught asleep at his post. You there, highwayman! The man's accent was strange, similar to the only other Northman he had met, the one he should have left to the crows. Never seen you here before. Slowly, Belmorn unfastened the buttons holding up his collar. The guard stepped forward. That was when Belmorn could see that the man was gripping a black powder rifle. True, said Belmorn in the most pleasant tone he could muster. I've never been here before, but I am looking for something. Is that so? The guard scoffed. raising an untrusting brow. "And what might you be hoping to find?" Though loath to spill his story to this lone sentry, Belmore knew that any hesitation on his part would come across as suspicious, even deceitful. "Only rest and supplies," he said calmly, truthfully. "And if I can find one, a guide." "A guide? To where?" The guard snorted again. "Hate to disappoint you, friend, but past Rune there's nothing worth finding. The road ends here." Belmorn lowered his head and grinned a knowing grin. "Fortunately for me, it goes a bit farther on, I'm afraid. I'm headed for a small mining village called Jace. Do you know it?" Hearing the name caused a subtle shudder in the guard. Attempting to recompose, he nodded. "I do, but as I said, it's not worth finding. Silver stopped flowing near 10 years back." Belmorn flashed a scornful glare. "Didn't come all this way for silver." The guard coughed up a laugh. "Nothing else in Jace. Never was. Just a dead mine, an empty mountain, and a town full of ghosts. Take my word on this, friend. You came all this way for nothing. Even if there was treasure left in those veins, you would find no one here mad enough to show you the way. It's too far into the veld, past the moat, almost to the mountain, and that road, well, it belongs to her now." Belmorn raised an eyebrow. His face hurt, and he was losing his patience. "Her who?" The guard pushed his face closer to the bars, close enough so that Belmorn could see the bloodshot white of his eyes. "Why, the veld has a witch. Slithered into these parts about the same time the silver stopped flowing." The guard studied Belmorn's face. "I promise you this, friend. Run afoul of that one, and you'll spend every night of the rest of your miserable life begging and pleading for one thing and one thing alone." Yellow teeth flashed in a crooked grin. "Forget what you're after, friend. Death will be your new treasure, and she'll make you beg for it. Problem with witches, they tend to keep their victims alive for as long as possible." Belmorn's jaw tightened. From the proximity, he couldn't help but smell the guard's breath, sweet and revolting like maggoty beef. From a pocket, he produced something small and circular, roughly the color of gold. Holding the coin between thumb and forefinger, he pushed it forward enough so the guard would reach for it, and then pulled back. "Let me in," Belmorn said firmly, quietly. "I'll cause no trouble, and I'll be gone by morning." He looked past the guard, tried to glean something of the city itself. The guard licked his lips, then managed to compose himself. Straightening his back, the man scowled through the bars. "Fine. I need a name and where you come from." "Rander Belmorn, of Grail." "Grail?" The word sounded misshapen on the guard's northern tongue. "I never heard of it." The Blackfoot shrugged. "Well, I've never seen a female Diplocaulus. Doesn't mean the males have taken to laying the eggs." He held the coin higher so it gleamed in the light. The guard looked confused, but his bloodshot eyes followed the trajectory of the coin. "Gone by morning?" Belmorn gave a slow nod. After another moment's consideration, the guard pushed a hand through the bars, the palm of which was promptly filled with a golden coin. After biting the thing, the man seemed satisfied, then went right back to annoyed. Gripping the spoke of what looked like a large wagon wheel, the guard pulled, but this only resulted in a high metallic squeal. Looking emasculated, the guard tried again, harder this time, forcing unseen machinery to wind back to life. Slowly and with visible effort, the wheel was turned on its axis, slowly raising the latticed portcullis with each rotation. When able, Belmorn led his horse by the reins through the gate. At the last second, he looked up to see the many angled points of the portcullis and urged Magnus on a little faster. A place this big must have an apothecary," he asked without asking. The guard grunted, scratching behind an ear. Coons. He was out of breath. But if I were you, I wouldn't bother. Not tonight. Balmorn stopped. Why not? Because by this hour, Graydon Coon will be too far deep in his cups to be of any use. For a peddler of wellness, the man is as cordial as a viper when drunk. The guard frowned. Better to try in the morning when he's only hungover. Shop won't be open, but if you bang hard enough on the door, you might get lucky. As for tonight, find the folly. Balmorn gave a look of confusion, much to the guard's amusement. Rune's still got 2 working taverns, but that's the one you want. Ask for Otma. She'll set you up with a bit of food. Maybe a bed, if she's in the mood. Again, the guard bit down on the golden coin. Head down this road, this main road there. It widens about a quarter of a mile down into the square. By this hour, it will be the only place with the lights still on. Again, Balmorn felt his lip throb. After sparing a semi-grateful nod for the guard, he moved away from the gate and into the last of the great shield cities.